Welcome to Colours of Nature, everyone. Thank you for tuning in on World Poetry Day in association with the Samuel Johnson Birthplace Museum. This evening, members of the Lichfield Poets and Runaway Writers of Burton will hope to bring you some uplifting poems on the theme of nature. We normally like to hold our events in libraries, pubs, community gardens and other social settings, but are very thankful that we can still bring you poetry through Zoom and YouTube. During the difficult year we've all been through, nature has been a gift for many of us through walks and gardening, so we thought that this would be a good theme as we've just moved into spring. And our first poetry reader will be Gary Carr, who is the chairman of Runaway Writers.
Hello and thank you, Janet. Okay, I have 3 short poems. First one is Changeling. Do I deserve a name? Flying in like a witch on the stormy sigh of winter's demise, fading in the breath of summer's infancy, a psychedelic vision, flower spectre. But generations of harvests gestate in my span, the resurrection of trees, a rebirth of bulbs. I earned my name in your ancestors' childhood. I am the leap into life, the spring forward. The second one is a spring poem insofar as it's positive and it's quite flowery. It's called Every Day Just Lifts Me a Little Bit Higher. In the beginning, it was the footsteps, just lengthening a little, delaying impact milliseconds. But I knew in here, the mist beat, losing contact with the world. Inside, a smile, a quiet tightening of guts, a pact with self not to even whisper this. Soon, each step was a small flight. This arc of stride began to attract attention from the worlds of media, of church and science, some seeking facts, each with a little box called Messiah, Faker, Liar. But the man who flies lacks the wherewithal to care, no time to tiptoe through the small minds whose rigidity allows them only to react. Last week, surfaces started to cascade, flow with flowers from every contact, however brief. Lakes of cornflowers meadowed footfall miracles not backed by any science, any soil, any fact. This morning, I exhaled spring, a perfect breath of day, a play of rabbits, woods and grass. This act brought me such happiness, I came to ask myself if I'm becoming God. In fact, if I explode with joy, might I create a better world? And finally, my favourite subject, trees. 8 views of an infinite number of deities. Leaves speak languages of air and water. The dance of leaves, a freedom of trees waiting for dormancy. When we build books, their leaves whisper stories of forests who died for them. Canopy is spring's song, woodland creche for summer's orchestra. Depth and fertility are gifts of leaves to their parents. Leaf, typically home to 11 species of mite. Respiration of leaves in sunlight is life. A planet dies, resurrects as oxygen breather. the god of leaves superior because she is real. Thank you. And I'd now like to hand over to a member of the Lichfield Poets, Sue Wood.
Thanks, Gary, and hi to anybody listening. I've set 3 poems and 5 haiku on nature. Today will be amazing. There's gold coming in the garden, entwined with emeralds and pearls, a snatch of sunlight hovering where succulent hollyberries were. Dig deep in the luscious soil, feel grit slip neath fingernails. Back aches as you till the earth, dispersing dormant insects or snails. See tiny new sheaves push forth, extol the first peeping of spring. Rub hands to disperse the chill, feel the coldest breeze on skin. Witness the first flash of feather, nesting deep in the guelder rose, as thrush or stub-tailed wren perform rituals of long ago. See how the garden changes in soft rain or dimming sun. Smell freshness in budding branches. Be amazed at treasures to come. Green space. Rubbing hands dispersing chill, light falls. Frost-bitten fields, calm and still, light falls. Dark lake, restless with turbulent life, terns and gulls, shrieking shrill, light falls. Across the stile where the horses are, waiting with patience to eat their fill, light falls. Through mud-encrusted dormant wood, towards the rise of Coppicewood Hill, light falls. Hedgerows busy with brimming life, spring shows me its returning will, light falls. Stag. Grazing tender grass emerging from shadowed oak, offspring await his return, within vision line, standing passively, keen, alert. Antlered glory, adorned with leaf, announcing his male dominance in blood, sinew, keratin, bone. In his prime, ancient forest king. 5 haiku on nature. 1. That quietness where trees whisper soothingly in softest green voices. 2. Larks soar in airy blue, showering earth with beauty. Joy pulls my heartstrings. 3. We already chant the trees, ready to adorn in brightest spring hue. 4. Straight as arrows, wild swans airlift heavy bodies over slate grey lake. 5. Moon shines in blue sky. Nature is topsy-turvy. Selene sings, sighs. Thank you. Next to read is Ben McNair, also a member of the Lichfield Poets.
Thank you, Sue. This one's called Symphony. The ambient noise of cars, the eternal honk of impatient drivers, rushing to work until March 2020, when the skies became clearer, the roads quieter, the deadlines, the timetable simply memories. The bird song, the rhythmic tarmac of pedestrians, a symphony. The quiet third movement of a concerto, and at the end only one sound, blackbird music. Lifelines. The cotton wool dogs playing by the pipe cleaner trees. Mother Nature is a small child, scrunched up face, 4-year-old sausage fingers, white sheet of paper and a rainbow of crayons. The lake is a mirror, every ripple a laughter line, every wave a worry, every crumb of bread a feast for the ducks. The church is the head teacher with the hard-won lessons. the books of scripture, the steeple the steeple is the tall hat, the trees at the gate, the wagging bony fingers, the breath in the air, a warning of clouds, a speech bubble of indelicate thought, a spider's web of best intentions. And finally, in the winter soil, the leaves have fallen, all the blooms have faded. The frost is an unbreakable sheet of glass. Underneath it are the new shoots, for hope grows in the winter soil. And I'll now hand you over to Phil Jones, who's one of the Lichfield poets.
Thank you, Ben. Just got 2 poems to read, and the first one's called Magnolia Tree. Someone's grabbed some gloss white paint and flung it on the tree's strung limbs. The splatter trail clings in the wind like Buddhist prayer flags shivering. Each year the flowers shriek out their shrill white noise, a haiku to signal nature's platitudes. Stuff dies and is reborn, the language of ash and coal, declaimed with perfect poise. The second one's called The Spring Sales. I'm going shopping today. It's the spring sales. There's lots of bargains to be had. The skylark's melodies are going for a song. The field fair's daring us to confuse him with a thrush. I shall read nature today just like a music score. I shall scan the contrapuntal phrases of the blackbird's cries, signing off with a cheeky Charlie Parker riff, discern the pigeon's basso coochie doo, attend to the tiny wren's top high C's, note the magpie's calls just like a football rattle in a crowd. I shall look out for other cut price goods with senses tuned to perfect pitch. There's another map of the world which is made from scents. The dark brown tones of dense packed woods, the May blossoms rasping lemon meringue rush, the sick sweet tang of a flat cow pat in furrowed fields. And yet there's also other sights for sore eyes. The viral spread of crocus and of daffodil, the cartoon quickness of the squirrel's larricking, the frog's blunt bullet head. Such a profusion of wares on display today. What are you bid? To you, madam, on the left, sold. And now delighted to hand you over to Margaret Torr, who's a member of the Runaway Writers and a storyteller, and she's now going to read a story.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me tonight. It's lovely to be here. You probably all know the story of the 3 bears, but do you know what happened after Goldilocks had run away? It was in the spring it happened. After the Goldilocks had left, Father Bear, he was helping Baby Bear because Baby Bear was so upset. And he said, don't worry, he said, we'll build you another chair. And everything seemed okay. But Mother Bear, she was cross. She was so cross that somebody had been in her house. How dare that girl go in her house, go through her things, eat their porridge, break Baby Bear's chair? How dare she do that? She was so angry. She took the clothes off Baby Bear's bed. She ripped them off. She washed them. She scrubbed the house, not once, not twice, but 3 times, even though she'd only done her spring cleaning 2 weeks ago. She was furious. She couldn't let it go. It simmered with her all through spring. It bubbled up all through summer. And when she went into the autumn and into her winter sleep, it was still there with her. She dreamt about that girl over and over. She dreamt she could see her in the bed and she would pull back the clothes, but there was only a hole in the bed, a huge hole, a hole so big that had Mother Bear leant over into that hole, she would have been swallowed up completely. She dreamt and she dreamt. And then in the spring, when the sun came through the curtains and woke them up and they began to rouse and stretch, it was the first thing on her mind. That girl had been in her house. She stretched and she stomped into the kitchen. She got the pans and she slammed them down on the stove. She shook the porridge into that pan and she stirred it, and the pan thumped and thumped the spoon against the pan. She scooped out that porridge, and by now Father Bear and Baby Bear were also awake, really looking forward to that first taste of porridge in the spring because they were so hungry. Mother Bear slapped those bowls down on the table. Now, Father Bear was an easygoing sort of chap, but he realised there was something wrong, and he said, "Are you okay, dear?" And she just glared at him. So they spooned in their porridge, Father Bear and Baby Bear. Mother Bear just looked at her porridge. She wasn't eating it at all. "Are you sure you're okay, dear?" said Father Bear. "Is it toothache? Is it earache?" She glared at him even harder. She looked down at that bowl. It seemed it was covered in gold hairs, and she slammed it across the table. "Do you not want that, dear?" said Father Bear. She glared at him even harder. "Well, it's a shame to waste it." And so he took the bowl and he scooped some into Baby Bear's bowl, and they ate it all up. Father Bear said, "What is the matter with you, dear?" He said, how about I take little one out for a game of football and we can look at the daffodils?" "Yes, you do that," she said. And as she said, she pushed the table away and she slammed the table. She rushed out the door, she slammed the door, every pot in the house shook. And she walked and she walked and she walked and she walked. She had no idea where she was going. She didn't see any of the things that she loved about spring. She didn't see the crocuses peeping up. She didn't see the daffodils swaying in the wind. She didn't hear the birds. She didn't see the leaves shooting and the blossoms start to come out. She saw none of those things. She walked and she walked and she walked. She walked till she really did not know where she was. And by now, she was absolutely starving. But she could see a little house at the edge. She'd come right out of the forest. And so she thought, "I don't know who lives here, but I'll knock and maybe they can give me directions." So she knocked on the door. The door opened and it was a tiny little old woman. Now, if she was surprised about seeing a bear on her doorstep, she didn't show it. She just looked up and she said, "Oh, Mrs. Bear," she said, "how wonderful to see you. Come in," she said, I just made some porridge. I'm just about to have breakfast. Would you like some?" Well, Mrs. Bear was so nonplussed. She just nodded and she dipped under the doorway because it was far too small for her to walk in. "Oh," said the little old lady, "you're just like my Jack used to be. He was a giant of a man. He always had to dip and bob under the door." "Come in," she said, "sit yourself down." Well, Mrs. Bear looked at the chairs round the table and she knew she wasn't going to fit in any of those chairs. "Oh, what am I thinking?" said the little old lady. "Just one moment," she said, and she went into another room and she came out dragging a great big chair. She said, "This was my Jack." She said, "It's too big for us." She said, "I put it in there, but I'm hoping it will be all right for you." So Mother Bear lowered herself down gingerly into the chair and it was just right. The old lady, she reached up into the cupboard and she brought out a huge bowl and she placed it in front of Mother Bear. And then she got a huge pan of porridge. Now, I don't know why the little old lady had made so much porridge, but there was plenty to fill that bowl right to the top. And she said to Mother Bear, she said, "Help yourself." She said, "There's honey, the syrup, the salt, the sugar, whatever takes your fancy." And Mrs. Bear, she took the honey and she spread it on her porridge. And as she spread it in, she remembered doing that when she was little. And she put her spoon in and oh, it was so delicious. Now, Mrs. Bear was no mean porridge maker herself, but this was the best porridge she had ever tasted in her life. It tasted just like when her mum used to make it for her. And she swallowed spoon after spoon and soon it was gone. And she remembered how she used to make patterns as a child. And just as she ate that last mouthful, the old lady placed a giant mug of tea in front of her. And she said, "Have a cup of tea, my dear, you'll need it." And Mrs. Bear, she cradled that big mug in her hands. And the old lady sat opposite her and she said, oh, she said, it's so good to see my Jack's bowl and mug and chair used again. She said, he died last year and he's left such a huge hole in our lives. My little granddaughter, Goldilocks, she was so upset. She ran off into the forest to try and find him because she couldn't understand where he'd gone. She's such a firecracker. And she stopped. For now, Mrs. Bear was no longer a well-rounded, well-porridged bear. She was angled, she was spiked, she was angry. There was fume coming out of her ears. Oh, my dear, said the old lady. She said, I seem to have touched a nerve. She said, are you by any chance the bear that my little granddaughter Goldilocks came to visit last year? Visit, said Mrs. Bear. Visit? She said, try breaking an entry. She said, try wanton destruction of furniture. She said, try sleeping in my son's bed and then running off without any explanation. Oh, I am sorry, said the little old lady, but she was grieving. And maybe your husband's chair reminded her of Grandfather Jack. It's a pity you frightened her off. She could have been a playmate for your little son. I don't let him mix with anybody, said Mother Bear. Oh, that's a shame, she said. Children need friends. She said, it's a long time to hold a grudge against a child. She said, are you sure there isn't anything else bothering you? She said, I'm just wondering, she said, that little bear that you used to be, what would she have done when she saw Goldilocks? Oh, she'd have run straight after her, said Mother. And she clamped a hand over her mouth. And she couldn't say any more because there was a huge lump like a boulder in her throat. And the little old lady said, she said, I think it went deeper than Goldilocks, don't you? She said, now, I'm going to have to say this, she said, because sometimes things need to be said. She said, I'm wondering if when you were little, you weren't like Goldilocks yourself, into everything, exploring. And Mother Bear remembered all those things. She remembered how she used to run and explore and was so curious. And she remembered how happy she felt. And then she remembered that sinking feeling when her parents would say, don't do that, that's dangerous. Don't open the door to strangers. Don't say anything to anybody. And she felt like all the joy had gone out of her. And from then on, she never was curious about anything again. She just worried about being safe all the time. And that's what she'd done with Baby Bear. And she could feel that lump in her throat getting bigger and bigger. And the little old lady said, am I right in what I said? And all Mother Bear could do was nod. A single tear coursed down her cheek. And the old lady said, she said, you know, even as adults, she said, we still get stuck with those old mantras that our family bring up with us, all those unspoken rules. But she said, you're a grown up now, she said. You can do whatever you like. You can choose to do what you want because you know whether it's safe or not. And she said, I think if you go right inside yourself and find that little girl in you, there's lots of adventures waiting for you. You're a brilliant wife and a brilliant mother, but there's so much more to you than that, my dear. She said, you're so full of creative possibilities. And as the old lady said that, Mother Bear felt herself getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And it was as if she was floating up out of that chair like a balloon. And the old lady said, you can come out now, dear. And Mother Bear nodded. And she said, well, she said, yes, you can. She said, but I was talking to Goldilocks. And with that, a bundle of curls came round the door. And Mother Bear, she stretched out her paw to Goldilocks. And she said, would you both like to come back to my cottage? And the old lady said, oh, she said, it's too far from me, my dear. She said, arthritic hip and all that, you know. She said, but I'm sure Goldilocks would love to go with you. And so that's what happened. Goldilocks went back with Mother Bear. She became a playmate for Baby Bear, and Father Bear filled some of the hole that Grandfather Jack had left. And as for Mother Bear, well, Mother Bear, she opened herself up to all her possibilities. Okay, thank you. So now I'd like to introduce Ian Ward, who's another member of the Lichfield Poets.
Hello there. I've got 3 poems. First one is Easter. Goddess Easter rose with the dawn to greet her king of hares on her day of days. Her hare had once been a bird, tasked with taking its egg to spring, to seek out spring wherever she hid, to take the egg, symbol of rebirth, to command the spring to raise life from the land again. Her bird could not find spring. Her bird had died in the cold, exhausted. Reborn as a hare, it has searched the hidden places. Now, on Easter's day, hares carry eggs and carry them across the land to hunt where a hidden spring sleeps, rouse her and present the egg, a command from the goddess to again raise life from the land. Thank you. Second is called Seasons of Time. The Lord of the Forest, one pocket full of hope, one pocket full of wonder. The Lady of the Forest, with stars in her hair and the sun in her smile. They called to me on the wind. I taste the salt in the air. I see the woods stretch forever. They called to us from afar. From the hills I see the fields of sunshine. Life is a diamond on an ocean of life. I catch her eye, I follow the trail. He is the echo of a shadow fall, a memory to hold on to. The song soars in the wind. We can be anyone, we can be everyone. The Lord of the Forest, one pocket full of wonder, one pocket full of hope. The Lady of the Forest, with stars in her hair and the sun in her smile. They call to me in the wind. I taste the salt in the air. I see the woods stretch forever. Lastly, we have the Ice Queen. Cold, cold winter's day. Mother Nature shivered. Snow shook from her fingers. The Ice Queen smiled. Mother Nature huddled in grey clouds. Stormy winds howled across the land. The Ice Queen danced. Long has she fought to wrest control. Frost, snow, ice, mist, colours wiped out in a single whiteout. Day upon day, animals dug deep into hills, into burrows. At night, the Ice Queen hunted with killing frost, freezing bodies solid, life suspended. Survivors crawled to safety, high on the hill, roots deep in the earth. Mother Nature clung, poured her life into the greenwood tree. Small green oasis in a winter desert. The Ice Queen fueled the winter. Mother Nature fed the animals kept her warm. For weeks the war raged. Snow, blizzards, freezing winds, but from time to time, a pale watery sun smiled, brightening that little patch of green. Snow softened to rain, frost melted in the earth, the Ice Queen had left. Mother Nature glowed again, the land blossomed, spring returned. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our guest Midlands poet, Jane Stanton. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I'd like to read 2 poems this evening. The first one is called Roadside Cafe. Among succulent grasses and frothed cow parsley, voles dine al fresco in umbelliferous shade. A ravenous kestrel dives, front of queue, its live lunch in sight under the vegetarian fare. Crows and magpies snack hurry-scurry between cars, preferring their meat thinly spread. Sated sparrows peck grit from the tarmac edge, purging their overindulgence at the seedy haunt downwind of here. Resplendent in striped dinner jackets, cinnabar caterpillars feast on butter-bright ragwort, ground safe from carnivorous clientele. Butterflies, blue haze of gossamer, gather for lunch at the nectar bar. As the night shift begins, spike-thin Reynard slinks in, collects his regular takeaway. And now a very short poem. Mizzlethrush Nest. Suspending disbelief as we wait on a red light, 5 unhinged heads poised between top and base heat of amber green. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Karen Aldred, who's a member of the Lichfield Poets.
Thank you. Hi there, everyone. I've got 3 poems here, and this is the first one, Pushing Through. You are sluggish from a too long sleep. The winter stasis has seeped into you, and you are afraid now, too afraid to venture out, too afraid to lift your head from this dark pillow or leave this safe, warm, earthy cocoon. And since the world became so hard with cold, you snuggle down deep here for safety, and it has become, oh, so comfortable, resting here in hidden isolation. But this is not what life is meant for. You are not designed to remain down here alone, nor to resist the sun's gentle wooing. Your nature will prevail now, for the pink-tinged winter sun is shedding her gossamer mantle. And look how brightly she shines. There is warmth to her now. It's time to venture out and join her. It's time to move on from your sleep-sodden sanctuary. Time to shake the winter dread from your soul. Time to cautiously raise your drowsy head. So arm yourself with steely turgor. Heave your shoulder against cracking earth. Push through, stretch out with budding splendor, and lift skyward. Okay, this one's called The Rise of the Daffodils. Gaudy self-lovers, heralding their arrival with bright trumpets and their obscenely green leaves, shafting the season's virgin brightness. Golden impostors, sun impersonators, attempting to usurp winter with their brash brightness. Yet chill still lingers in the shade. And now they are bowing in the wind, not in deference to the still bare trees, but in haughty acknowledgement of spring's applause. And finally, Mountain Spring. Felled grass, conspicuously green, gives away the secret birth of the river. The ground fizzes like the sound of ideas forming, an electrostatic fizzing as it tunes into its watery life. Bubbles spawn and gather with their siblings, curious children, pushing in, then leaving, then returning again, jostling for position and forming new shapes as they are carried on the shoulders of the gathering current. Thank you. And it's now my pleasure to hand on to the leader of the Lichfield Poets, Janet Jenkins.
Thank you very much, Karen. Nature's kickstart. Today, nature kickstarted my spirits. Melancholia had to wait in the wings. The air was awash with expectation. Cowslips coughed and sarcophagus sneezed as mad March rain hammered on their heads. Raindrops bounced and bubbled on a murky, unkempt pond. Shriveled autumnal leaves clung to springtime boughs. Bleached white birches glowed in the gloom. Sparrows beak-butted and nibbled fat balls. A blackbird pecked at a bruised, discarded bramley. A lone bee buzzed a tune as he alighted on a celandine. Morning has broken, hung in the air. Crocuses and snowdrops. They are flagging and dying now, these bounteous light bulb beauties, whose cream, mauve and yellow blooms ended our winter blues, lifted our hearts, revived our smiles. It's their time to leave, but their bright white companions are trying to stay a little longer, bowing their heads, clinging on to sturdy stems, eager to greet the arrival of spring. Capturing nature. The autumn hues were striking last year. I camera clicked the same garden scene over and over again, trying to capture morning, afternoon and early evening light. But none portrayed the sight before me. Mother Nature displaying her glorious gowns before disrobing slowly, then quickly into the autumn winter chill. Forever entwined. Once we stood side by side, two frail saplings fighting to grow and flourish, enhance the splendour of this wood. Time passed, our trunks slowly entwined, forced together by the strength of wind, rain and hail, bearing down, thunder and lightning raging above. We found mutual comfort. Comfort grew into affection, affection into love, a love that reaches down to our deepest roots. We are inseparable. Only humans could drive us apart. And lastly, rainbow thoughts. They marvel at me when I splash my colours before them after rainfall, stand or sit and watch until I fade away. Stories have evolved about a pot of gold guarded by leprechauns. Nonsense, of course, but it makes me seem even more magical. They even display my picture in windows with wave flags imprinted with my colours and sing a song about me. Sadly, they don't get it right. I have no pink. And next we have Heather, another member of the Lichfield Poets.
Thank you, Janet. Good evening, everybody. I've got 3 poems to read to you this evening. The first one is called Why Now? Yes, buds begin to form on trees as sunshine subtly gains in warmth, and woodland flowers start to bloom, while birds strike up their chorus calls. But raindrops often roam in gangs, mocking cars that stall in floods, that smother roads and fields and homes and mash the pathways into mud. It's commonplace for winds to rant and flatten daffs and whip cheeks red, to thrash the waves that toss the ships while ripping tiles and trees from beds. Snow waltzes in whenever it can and piles as deeply as it suits, cares not a jot what plans it foils, while freeing frosts to scupper fruits. You're right to ask how spring could be my favourite time of every year. The answer, if you want to know, is the returning of the light, my dear. This one's called Money Well Spent. From February to April, look out for blousy strumpets striding lithely everywhere. See them blaze, yellow as a child's painted sun, cheery stoics in snow, hailing the day, waving and nodding, hobbing, bobbing, yellow splashes of soaring spirits. 1 single pound will purchase a bowl of golden sunshine and fill a room for a week with a sweet, subtle scent, finer than any bottled and boxed by Chanel, given a number, then sold in an airtight cellophane wrap. Buy daffodils and buy hope. This one's called Race into Spring. They're under starters' orders and they're off. Outsider Winter Jasmine has taken an early lead, throwing yellow tendrils over frosted fences, skittering over the first hurdles. Right on her shoulder is a potential front runner which has performed well in trials. The tight white tears of the snowdrops open into a milky splash of unexpected delight in the afternoon gloom. They nudge in front, but there's all to race for. One to keep an eye on is the primrose, less showy, but peeking beneath the hedgerows, she can often eclipse the field. The going is still hard as, rounding the first bend, the crocus bursts through the cracked earth. The fragile purple spears have not impressed in training, but en masse they give a spirited display. Spring is really getting into her stride now, flinging catkins high to hang from bare black boughs, hurling violets and wood anemones under dappled light. Celandines spread easily, like butter over hot toast, and kingcups are vying for the front spot among the nodding white wood sorrel and the pink butterbur. Pussy willow strains shoulder to shoulder with blackthorn. It's not over yet. As we head into the home straight, forget-me-nots are now leading, but so many things are loose, it could be anyone's race. Snowdrops and crocus have been hampered, peaking too soon, and coming up on the outside, just as the leaves begin to weave their high canopy, a carpet of heavenly blue has surged a nose ahead over the final furlong. A bravura performance. Hats are off, and it's a tremendous reception for the bluebells who take home the trophy. Thank you. I'd like to hand over now to Lisa Millard, who's a member of Lichfield Poets.
Thank you. I have 3 poems to share with you this evening, the first of which is called Seed of Hope. Plunged into darkness, a seed of hope is planted. Look to the future. Patience prances through fresh soil. Joy sprouts grass green stem. A seed of hope is planted. Prickling leaves tickle dancing sunbeams as they bounce. Look to the future. Nurture, nourish with birdsong. Crumble crumbs of soil. A seed of hope is planted. Beautiful bounty anticipated in tons. Look to the future. Within a blazing red breast, a seed of hope is planted. And my next one is Spring Visit. Deep set sun behind clouded eyes. Spring broke through brittle branches for a fleeting visit. It wafted in to kiss rosy cheeks, whispered a promise that it would return. Cushioned blanket of snow washed clean, stored in droplets of seeds. A porcelain palanquin placed gently upon onyx wings. It ascended, leaving condensing breath gasping in pursuit. Lastly, unfinished painting. It breaks like glass, shattering through crystal sky. It begins as a speck of colour protruding through monochrome months, then a smear as blossoms bloom, a crescendo of birdsong symbols. Warm breeze lingers, rests upon branches bursting with fresh buds before curling your hair around its fresh fingers. Green shoots splatter across splintered wood. Marmalade yellow salutes to freedom and waves to fellow comrades. It is speckles of light that prance beside shadows as they tickle the boundaries. It is a painting in the making, one never finished. And sat beside me is Daniel Kay, also a member of the Lichfield Poets. And on his behalf, I'm going to read 1 poem and 4 haiku. So his first poem is Love Letter to Spring. If I could write Spring a love letter, I'd tell her that I couldn't stop thinking about her from September to March. Each morning I woke with the leftover dream of her singing Hosier and making banana pancakes. Coffee was my 8 a.m. job. The monochrome flies in the face of the field's vivid colours: lavender, marigold, juniper. We jump into the reflecting pool of my most beloved season and sit at the bottom, making friends with catfish and moss. They both wish Sunday lasted a few moments longer, like blooper scenes. If I could write Spring a love letter, I'd assure her that the weeping willow roots carved our story into the earth before we could sit in a moment, knowing of its gravity. She wishes me luck and doesn't need Facebook to remember my birthday, and surprises each of my trips around the sun with a basket of fresh strawberries. Oh, I've missed her. The way a terrier misses its instinct to run through picket fences and tease forest animals with its tiny bark. After she read my inked signature, I'd cue the robins to tweet in her synchronised childhood song, the one her mother would use to welcome the new day. And 4 haiku. Crimson-hued gardens, poppies and roses lined up, red seas of beauty. Magenta petals blanketing a sweet pistil where all life begins. Sweet cacophony, raindrops falling down swiftly, sweet touch giving life. White dandelions make a wish, blow them away, scattered dreams alive. Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Shaw, also a member of the Lichfield Poets.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I've got 3 poems for you this evening. This first one is called Granny, Queen of the Fairies. She is a whisper. She weaves magic with the breath of the wind. She cloaks herself in glitter and children's giggles. She has wings of gossamer and gold and a crown of smiling roses. She dances with the butterflies. She brings laughter to the daisies. She brings fairies to the door. She parts the clouds to let in the sun. She's the warmth of a midsummer's day. Thank you. And my next poem is called Hope. The tiny spiders make the leap. With silk of sunlight float on the breeze. Currents raise them up, they billow, wait to drop. Imagine better things, a web and food with wings. And for my last poem, I'd just like you to imagine that you're at your favourite beach. So this one is called Sunset at Watergate Bay. Waves slap around my feet, slowly into the sand I sink. And I don't care how deep waves slap around my feet. The sound is so sweet, there's no need to think. Waves slap around my feet, slowly into the sand I sink. Thank you. And I'd now like to introduce Phil Binding, who's also from the Lichfield Poets. Phil.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Happy equinox. I've got 3 poems for you. First one is called How Does It Feel? I am the bird whose wings you clipped, whose existence you forgot as you crushed me beneath busy wheels, poisoned me in the hedgeless fields, stifled my breath in smoke-foul air. I am the bird. I am the rabbit you shot for sport, let your dogs rip apart, whose home you destroyed to build your own, whose breath you stopped with disease, whose meadows lie under tarmac. I am the rabbit. I am the badger whose set you blocked, whose children were mauled by terriers, or culled by hunters to stop imaginary infections, filling your greedy plate with slaughtered meat. I am the badger. You